Today is the Sunday after Easter, and it was a long Lent. I don't know if it was for you too. You know, Lent is often a time for fasting, and I have been fasting since before I can remember. Where I'm from, fasting is a common practice, and Holy Week is a common fast time. My parents fasted occasionally as I grew up. My mother described it to me as a tool for healing. So many different cultures where I'm from fasted. Fasting for religious clarity didn't necessarily mean abstaining from food, but it often was. Abstaining in our context now doesn't necessarily need to be about food. We can take time away from a habit of any kind. We seek clarity in this way. We check familiar patterns to be certain we are behaving in healthy ways. Fasting from food, however, does strike a particular ancient and political chord. It is practiced widely, not just where I'm from. People have different individual reasons or explanations. Different groups have different customs. But generally, the religious people I knew lived this way. It was easy for me, as a child, to assume all people lived this way. Then I came to New York. I encountered a new kind of cultural diversity here, a new landscape of religion. I came to know Judaism and Islam, each with distinct ways of relating to fasting, yet both still very different from me and where I come from. Moreover, here in New York, I encountered people who didn't know what it was to fast, people who had never done it, had never heard of others who had done it, and still others who had never known anyone to have fasted. I encountered people who were actively, aggressively against such practices of self-deprivation, heralding instead a practice of self-affirmation, of self-care. Reverent abstention was not a part of life where these new friends came from. They wanted what was best for me, and guided by religious liberalism, my new friends tried to save me from what they saw as my dangerous and destructive piety. It wasn't long before I decided it was easier for me just to not talk about it. It was easier not to talk about religion at all, in fact. And my religion in this time in my life became another aspect of my identity that it was easier just to hide. I would do my best just to spend fast days alone. Those days I would avoid my friends. I'd stay in at night. The tension I felt on the inside I could only describe as a feeling of having my values in conflict with each other. I wanted to seek integrity on the one hand and avoid conflict on the other. I learned to keep myself hidden to feel safe, to preserve my integrity, I told myself. If I had my life to live over, I would not have made that choice. I would not have hidden myself. On one of these fast days in particular, I was trying not to show my friends I was fasting, but we had a scheduled soccer game that afternoon. My friends and I, after our game, went to a Subway chain where they make sandwiches, and we were very excited. You know, the reason we went to this particular Subway is because a friend on our team who was from Nepal also had a friend who worked at Subway from Nepal. We would get good discounts. I didn't know that this friend behind the counter was also Muslim. And at the time of our soccer game, it was also Ramadan. The other players on the team went up and ordered a sandwich, but I was fasting, so I did not. I didn't even approach the counter. "Come on, what do you want, Zach?" my friends would each say. "Don't worry, I got you," mentioned another friend, who was worried I didn't have the money. "I'm good," I insisted. I was the only one on the team who didn't order. And after we had been helped, my friends shuffled to get their table together, and I had lingered standing. The man who served us lingered as well, almost to ask a question of me, but he didn't say anything, so I broke the silence first. "How are you?" I asked. "Hungry," he replied. "You?" "Me too," I said. "Ramadan Mubarak," he said to me and walked away. It was a bit awkward, and I didn't know what to say in return, and I didn't know what his words even meant at the time, or even what Ramadan was, but it really didn't matter because at that moment I felt seen. I didn't have to tell him that actually I was Christian, not Muslim. We didn't have to discuss the terms of the fast to figure out who was doing it right. I knew he had seen something important in me. I felt a new kind of belonging. It was deeper, like someone so different from me could actually be very much the same. That short conversation shaped me a great deal, and if I had to live my life over, I would tell people more often when I feel hungry, and I would not hide my truth so much. Blessed be.